Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. Today I'm here with a visitor who's going to talk to us about another discipline of engineering. So you guys know I've been trying to have all the disciplines of engineering on this channel just to give you guys an overview of what it entails and help you guys make an informed decision if you are thinking of doing engineering. So today I'm here with Korede, who is a very special kind of engineer because he's one of those engineers who tap into the different disciplines of engineering. He studied electrical engineering and right now is working in software engineering. So he has information on those two disciplines, and he also has a bit of knowledge on computer science because he studied that as well as a minor. So we're gonna dive into all of that, and I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna be excited about this video because this is gonna be a lot of information. So thank you for being here.
No problem.
He came all the way from Waterloo, so thank you for being here. So why did you choose electrical engineering, and what was your exposure to engineering growing up?
As far as, or the question of why I chose electrical, for the most part, I always wanted to do something computer related, so software primarily. However, it was more like a parent's decision and I'm pretty sure a lot of Nigerians have gone through that. So they convinced me into thinking that electrical was more broad, so it would cover more bases. Even if I knew what I wanted to do already, they wanted me to do something that was quote unquote broad so that I'd have more options when I was done school. So that was the reason for the electrical
engineering.
However, I always wanted to do something like tech related.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have any key influences? Like, did you have a parent who was an engineer? Most people usually, if they have some experience with that kind of profession around them growing up, they tend to like fall into that direction.
Well, my dad was an engineer, but he was a mechanical engineer, so I guess that's what gave me the flair for it, but I never really knew what it entailed because his engineering was different from the kind of engineering I was doing.
Yeah. Can you give people a brief overview of what electrical engineering entails?
Electrical is more, as it says, electrical, so electronics. It has a lot of like circuit related stuff. It has a lot to do with like the voltages and currents. It's more what powers the devices versus what goes on like a logical standpoint. So electrical involves like circuit design, involves like all the, I don't know what word to use to explain it without going into technical, but it's just about powering the device, just basically electrical.
Electrical, like any device, basically.
Any device that runs on electricity has some sort of
electrical engineering that has to like touch it. So what about software engineering? Can you give like a brief overview of what that entails?
Now, software engineering, it seems very, very niche, but it's actually very vague because now, especially because of how a lot of things are shifting to software, it's a very big, there are lots of things that involve software engineering. So websites, a lot of them run software. Things like, now it can go from websites to things like fridges. So now, because some fridges even like have Wi-Fi, if you can connect to Wi-Fi if you believe it. Yeah, like some fridges have like Android running on them just for like silly things like being able to enter what's in your fridge and control temperatures from the outside.
Interesting.
So all of that is software. So anything that involves a computer that can run something, and lately computers aren't just what you use to like type and stuff. The term computer is very, very broad. So now even a camera is a computer. Your dash on your car is a computer. So
this computer?
A phone has more computing power than computers that we were using like 10 years ago. So
that's true.
Everything now is a computer, and all of that runs software. So to be a software engineer, this is actually one of the best times to be a software engineer.
That's what I always tell people.
Because there are lots of jobs, because now they're moving everything to software. So like they're finding reasons to use software on every single thing. So now, if you're a software engineer, you're not limited to one stream. You can literally switch jobs like 5 different times and work on entirely different things with your software engineering background.
There's a big market for that. If I didn't study chemical engineering, I would have wanted to study software engineering or anything that has to do with computers because it just makes sense, right? In terms of security, job security, opportunity, it's really broad, right? So what are the biggest misconceptions about electrical engineering and software engineering? So different misconceptions. Like for chemical engineering, I always say they always think we're just mixing chemicals. That's what they think we're doing. So what do you like? Are there big misconceptions for electrical engineering and software?
Electrical engineering, for one of the misconceptions is that people always, like people are inclined to call them electricians, which is
I've heard that before.
which is the farthest thing from what they do. Electrical engineers, any engineer in whatever stream has to do some sort of design work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of design that goes into engineering. It's one of like the main pillars of engineering. So electrical engineers do more circuit design. So if they want like a specific chip to function a specific way to maximize the power, so that if you plug it in, like it's not overdrawing too much power to one section of it, to send power to the right parts of it, all that kind of like design, that's more in electrical engineering. So it's not just going in to fix a problem. Sure, they may have the capabilities to do that, but the design part of it is one of the main parts of being an electrical engineer. So you really like learn the ins and outs of how to design electrical components. And in my opinion, it gets fairly complex if you want to actually like very few people in electrical engineering, at least that I know of, have gotten jobs like right out of undergrad. It's something that, one, you have to know you want to do it, and two, well, when you do know you want to do it, you can get like a graduate degree so that you have like a specialization, and then you'll find like a role that suits you best.
So you advise in actually if you have a passion for it, you advise specializing, like
for
taking the
electrical?
extra step.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What about software? Software engineering misconceptions.
So software engineering, most people just think all they do is code. Like all they do is just go into office.
That's not what you guys do.
That's the bulk of it, but we also do. You can't just like walk into your office and then start writing code. A lot of the work that you do is design. It's design too. So we do a lot of like whiteboarding. We have a lot of meetings, like design meetings. So whiteboarding, because the big part of being a good software engineer isn't just writing good code. It's also an overall architecture that plays well together. So you don't want to waste resources by overly depending on one specific thing to do all your processing when it can be spread out better. And that's part of understanding. So like whiteboarding is more meeting with a group of people or on your own and just drawing out the overall pattern,
the plan,
knowing how each component interacts with one another, and then perfectly like designing that properly before you start writing your code. Because when you write your code after designing, it goes a lot more smoothly because you know what piece fits into what piece, you know what to expect from each thing, and then everything just grows better.
So like with any engineering, there's a level of project management and planning that goes into all of that, right?
Oh yeah.
Same thing that would go for software as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Are you happy with the discipline you chose to study? And do you think if you had more knowledge about different disciplines prior to going to university, you would have made a different choice?
I mean, I'm not unhappy with the discipline I chose because it still had a segue into what I'm doing now. However, if I had an option, I would definitely have studied computer systems engineering because it's not quite as far as software, but it's not as low level as electrical.
Okay, sorry, computer systems engineering. Is that different from computer engineering?
No, it's the
same thing.
Different
Okay,
schools
it's
call
just
it different things. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's still computer engineering.
Okay.
So that just has a lot more. It has some degree of hardware because like the whole those streams of engineering are usually like hardware and software, and then depending on what stream you're in, you have like different degrees of hardware and software integration. So electrical, you do a lot of hardware stuff and minimal software. Software, you do a lot of software and almost no hardware.
Yeah.
The computer systems or computer engineering, it's kind of like a good bridge between the two. So it kind of gives you as much hardware you need to know to bridge it into the software, and then gives you enough software you need to know to bring to the hardware. And with that kind of knowledge, it gives you the option to know which one or what side of it like appeals to you, and then take whichever one and run.
See, that's very good information to have, right? Because most people would probably like to fall in that middle too, right? But they wouldn't know that. Okay. Most people think it's damn near impossible. Most people, including me, and most people, think it's damn near impossible to juggle a minor if you're already doing a major in engineering. What advice can you give to people what advice can you give on how to successfully complete a minor alongside your engineering degrees, seeing as you did do that? You did computer science and electrical engineering. Sorry, before you start, did you take your minor straight off from first year?
No, that's the thing.
Oh, okay.
So I added, it depends on what, you have to have a passion for it unless it would just seem like work. So I started my major, and as engineers we have the luxury of, I don't even really call it luxury, just the benefit of knowing all the courses you have to take from first year to fourth year. So like we have like a calendar we're supposed to follow. So because of that, I started my first and second year, and I think after second year I realized that, because I had not done any sort of coding before coming to university, and then after second year I had already known that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like the first time I started coding, I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
That's amazing. That's good.
So after second year I looked at the calendar and I saw that there were little to no coding courses left unless I manually took coding courses as electives. And I didn't want to just start shoving electives without having some sort of like testament of my degree to me knowing what I'm talking about. So I figured if I added a minor in computer science, then my degree would actually reflect that I know this thing. So then I went ahead and added the minor. It took me doing like, I had to do summer school, I had to overload some semesters just so I could like do the minor and still, because I finished university I finished university in 4 years and a semester. If I didn't overload the way I did or take summer courses, I might have taken 5 years if I remember.
5 years, okay.
But I made sure, because I still wanted to finish early, so I still finished in like 4.5 years because of the minor. And honestly, in my entire university career, I'd say that was one of the best decisions I made adding the minor.
I think it's a good decision too. Sorry, but in terms of planning it, like planning the minor, so you added it, you just basically added it on, and it's just about timing and sectioning it off, right? But were there some courses that were transferable for the computer science?
Oh yeah.
From the engineering?
Yeah. Okay. Some courses that there's a limit. Different schools have different policies with minors. There's a limit to how many courses can count towards both your major and your minor, and because of that, because they don't want to say, oh, because you're taking this major, minor is already implied. Obviously, there's some specialized courses in the minor, so there are some courses that were completely out of the scope of my major that I had to take, and there are some courses that they were like, oh, they're close enough to just count as both. But even those courses, there's a limit to how many you can count for both, and then you still have to like add the extra ones on top of it.
Okay, so we're talking about coding. This is not even on the question list, but I told you about it, how that was the worst course. I've told you guys too, that was the worst course I've ever taken, coding, because I didn't have any prior knowledge. See, you didn't have any prior knowledge too, but you fell in love with it and you knew you wanted to do that forever. For me, I was like, I know I can't do this, right? Most people now, they're being encouraged, you're telling them they should learn a language, at least a coding language. So how do you think people can get the knack for it? How do you think people can actually just persist a bit more to just learn?
I feel like for that question, I have a very biased standpoint. I believe that and I don't know if this applies to everyone, but I believe that there's some sort of satisfaction, at least if you think of yourself as an intellectual person, I believe there's some sort of satisfaction that comes from solving complex problems. So whenever, it's not even, sometimes it's about the work, like I like doing the work and like coming up with solutions, but sometimes, especially when I come across, because that's one thing about coding, if it's not for you, it can get a little bit frustrating. So if you come across a problem that you're having a hard time troubleshooting, it can get a bit frustrating, and I feel like that's how it is for everyone. But when you do solve the problem, there's this feeling of euphoria that comes from
satisfaction.
It. Yeah, it kind of reinforces to yourself that, oh, I'm smart, oh, I can solve this. And honestly, it makes me think very logically. So I'm a very logical thinker. I like to believe I am. So because of that, I can problem solve when I'm coding. I can like think and build incrementally and use like what I'm building to build other things, and it just makes you a better problem solver overall. So to get a knack for coding, which was the initial question you asked, I want to say just start from small problems and then scale.
Okay. I guess you gotta start somewhere. I think you already touched on this, but can you briefly explain the core differences between computer science, computer engineering, and software engineering? You kind of touched on this, but just give them like the conclusion of this again.
So computer engineering and software engineering, I'll cover that first. Computer engineering has a little more hardware. So
you said hardware, software.
yeah. So computer engineering has like the architecture of the computer. Computer engineering explains how the computer actually interprets the commands that the software gives it. So software is essentially boils down into ones and zeros, and then those ones and zeros are what's given to the hardware, because the hardware basically only understands ones and zeros in order to like, because everything is just like voltages passing around to like fire different things. So it boils down to that, and then that's what the computer interprets. So computer engineering actually shows you how the ones and zeros are interpreted by the hardware and carries out the instructions and then gives you a solution from that, which then travels upwards into, if you believe it, a website, so, or anything that's built from software. So computer engineering gives you that full breadth. It doesn't go as niche as how the software itself is. It doesn't go deep into how to implement the software. It just kind of shows you the hardware software interface, and then goes deep in either direction, but not as deep as, like, it won't, for example, computer engineering won't go as deep in the hardware as electrical would, and it won't go as deep in the software as software would. Yeah. Computer science and software engineering are getting closer and closer in terms of how they, like,
fundamentals?
And material. So computer science may take things into a more scientific standpoint, whereas software engineering will show you like how to engineer software. So how to, like, software engineering will teach you design principles and how proper software is supposed to look, how to scale software, like software should be scalable, it should be reusable. It'll teach you how to like make quality software. Computer science, it teaches those same things too, but then there's some things that it just approaches from like a scientific standpoint, from like a study standpoint, and then things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, that's when they come in. So that's when you start thinking from like a more scientific standpoint. And even now, software engineers will still have the option to learn those things. So even though there's some core differences between the two, software engineering and computer science are fairly in the same like bracket.
Okay. So that's a good mix then, if people want to add that on as like a minor when you're doing engineering, within that engineering like sphere. What industries can you find an electrical engineer in, or what processes require them? Because most people like to be able to visualize where they could work, right, with that degree. So what industries?
Right now, almost any tech industry, because as much as you need software engineers, you need some sort of hardware for that software to run on. Because software engineers are not going to write code that's just going to run in the air. So like for every software engineer, there's some sort of hardware electrical engineer that designed the device that the software is running on. But like I said, because electrical engineering, you have to be it's a very specialized field, because for one piece of hardware, there's multiple pieces of software. So like a good example is for one iPhone, there are multiple apps that go on that iPhone.
Go on that, right?
But there's not multiple. I mean, the amount of electrical engineering that goes into an iPhone is pretty significant, but the amount of software engineering that goes into all of the apps that are on an iPhone is astronomically more. So
that visual is very, very good. Was it difficult to switch into a software engineering job with your core background being in electrical engineering?
Difficult, no, because like I said, I also had the minor in computer science. You had the minor in computer science. And that helped with the software, and I had the engineering background, so the meld between the two kind of helped also. When I was looking for work, I was primarily only applying for software engineering roles, and I also got like a fairly good recommendation from one of my professors, because I did most engineers in Canada have to do like a 4th year design project, and I did, the professor I did mine with, he was the one that recommended me to the first job I started working at. So he just told him that one of his ex-students was looking for someone, and he just put my name. I'm like, oh, well, thank you.
The power of networking, which is what I always say. Yeah.
So because of that got me my very first job in a software role. Yeah. Because he had taught me in other courses, and then he taught me in like 3 or 4 different courses, and he was my supervisor for my 4th year project. So like we had like a very significant rapport. So because of that, he could testify to, I guess, my technical strengths.
I like that. Yeah. That's good. I like it when people are able to help out. Most people want to know how they can. So Korede works at Google, which is where most people who are in the software computer field. That's where most of them want to go to, the Googles and the Microsofts and all of that, right? So a lot of people would like to know, how can they bag themselves a job like the one you have at Google or Microsoft or any of the big tech companies? Like, how can they actually stand out to get themselves in there?
Well, one, it goes without saying, you actually have to be good. Like, you have to have practice, you have to have projects that back your practice, you have to have work experience that backs your technical strengths. You can't just submit a resume with a blank resume and say, oh, I'm good, take my word for it. Exactly. You have to actually have technical strength so you can get your foot in the door. If you know someone, they can give you a recommendation, which is great, because recommendations go a long way.
How useful is GPA for your grade? How useful is GPA or your grade to get into those top tech companies?
It depends. If you're just coming out of school, maybe it's useful. However, I think once you get reached out to by a recruiter, GPA doesn't play a big role anymore. So if you can get yourself to a point where a recruiter can reach out to you without them knowing your GPA, then it's because I didn't have a very strong GPA at all going out. Like, I mean, it wasn't bad, but like,
it wasn't top of the top.
Yeah,
like
it wasn't a good representation of my, especially because, like I said, I knew what I was going to school. Once I started coding, I knew that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. That kind of made me very partial in terms of how I took courses. So if it wasn't a coding course or a math course, I would just shrug my shoulders and be like, I'm just gonna pass. I just need the grade. When you are being considered, they ask me to submit my transcript, and I don't know what they use it for. However, I feel like the people hiring are smart enough to know that if you didn't do well in, let's say, a communications course, it doesn't say anything about the fact that you got an A+ on a programming course, and they're only looking to hire you for you. They don't care about how you do in other courses. They just care about how well
application from those courses.
So I did really well in all courses related to my field, and I didn't do fairly well. I didn't care very much for. And I feel like I've met a lot of people that are like this.
They're in that same boat?
Yeah, that they know the courses that they want to do well in and just focus on those.
So GPA is not a hard indicator of like whether or not you're gonna be able to.
Oh no.
Okay.
It is not. It's not.
What about co-op and internships? Do you think right now, because any student I can get a hold of, I always tell them, make sure if you do have co-op and it's mandatory, great, but if you don't, make sure you go on your summers, no more time for fun, make sure you go and you get that summer internship or co-op, right? But most people don't have that mandatory co-op. Most people don't have the opportunities to go get co-op. If they come out of school with a degree and they don't have any experience, the GPA is okay, like, what are their chances?
I would definitely advise people to get co-op because experience is very key, and it's something that employers right out of school look at, because then it's something that demonstrates a track record of doing good work and technical experience. However, actually I won't say however, because I don't want to discourage people from not doing co-op. I feel like co-op is a very, very, very strong advantage. I didn't do co-op, and it put me in a very, 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 like...
Oh, you didn't do co-op?
No, I didn't do any co-op. But my prof was a serious, significant saving grace, because a lot of the time when I was looking for a job out of school, I would go for interviews. I would do extremely well in the interviews. Like, I would know from... Obviously, you know when you're doing well in an interview, and I'll get the call back. And one of them explicitly told me that, yeah, they can't justify hiring someone with no experience for the role.
And I'm sure it was entry level.
Yeah. So they can say that the role is quote unquote entry level, but they still expect some sort of like co-op experience. Yeah. And they would obviously hire, if they're weighing, even if it's an entry level job, if they're weighing you against someone who has co-op, 10 times out of 10 they pick the person who has co-op, unless you absolutely blew their mind.
Yeah.
So from a co-op standpoint, then definitely it's always going to be a plus.
Okay. Because I've had arguments with the recruiters asking them, it's entry level, so why are you not like hiring me? And they're like, but they want experience still, which is understandable, but still. How can people be more proactive about getting a job after school in such a competitive field? But when I say field, I'm talking about engineering. Engineering as a whole, the number of graduates per year, per season is a lot, it's significant. So how can people actually secure jobs in engineering out of school? How can they be proactive enough to actually secure jobs? Because they're limited, right?
As far as proactivity goes, networking is, just because I got my first job from a professor's recommendation, networking and not missing out chances to showcase your technical expertise to people, that's a very big big thing. Having people being able to testify, because now, because of how many jobs people compete for, because of how many, there's so few jobs. I mean, there are a lot of engineering jobs, but there are a lot more people competing for those jobs.
Yeah.
So you can say that, oh, there are lots of jobs in engineering, but people know there are lots of jobs in engineering, so people are trying to get those jobs. So more people are, obviously people are always going to be more than the jobs. So you have to do whatever you can to demonstrate how good you are so that people can attest to how good you are. And then when that happens, you can get your foot in the door, and then you get the chance to show the employers how good you are. But if they have nothing to go on, you're just a name on a sheet of paper, and at the end of the day they're seeing the same thing from multiple people on multiple sheets of paper that have, and at the end of the day when they're looking through these resumes, it just blurs through. So
like 2 seconds.
Yeah. So you either have to stand out significantly or have someone put your name on top of the pile, so that they put a face to the name and you become more notable as opposed to just a random another resume.
So networking is key for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And being good.
And being good too, obviously. So why do you think a lot of people are intimidated by engineering?
Because it's hard.
True.
There's no way to cut corners. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Engineering is hard. Every engineer, and that's why they give us the ring to prove that we've been through it. Engineering it's not something. It's actually not a cakewalk.
It's not a joke. That makes sense because it's hard.
But it's worth it at the end. So
it is worth it. I just wish a lot of people would take their time to really think about it before they go, because it's this hard and it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, sweat, tears, blood. You really have to really think about what you're getting yourself into for the next 4 years or maybe your life. What subjects would you say are sort of the core fundamentals of like software engineering and electrical engineering? Like what are the core courses?
For electrical engineering, it's basically like circuit courses, analog circuits and digital circuits, depending on what stream of electrical you want to specialize in. Electronics courses, so courses that involve, it's basically still under analog and digital. So for electrical, because I haven't worked as an electrical engineer professionally, I don't even know what courses would
be applicable.
But for software engineering, that's not, like I said before, it's very broad, but the core concepts are still, usually in every software engineering major, there's usually a course called software engineering where they actually teach you the core concepts about software engineering. So like courses like that are usually like courses to pay attention to, because they teach you how to build quality software. They teach you how not to make, because there's some silly mistakes you can make in software engineering that can ruin your entire code. Like essentially coding is about building a good foundation to build on top of, because no one wants to build software and then stop.
And they have to go right back down.
Exactly. Because the reason why, like, software is never done. You always want to build on top of it. There's always something better to do. That's why all our apps ask us to update ever so often. So if you don't give your software a good enough solid foundation, you can't really build on top of it properly. And software engineering courses really teach you how to scale and reuse your software in ways that when you want to do bigger things, build bigger things on top of your software, you can easily do that. So for example, if let's say Instagram, first of all, it was just pictures, now it can handle videos, it can handle stories, all of that. If they didn't build their software in such a way that it could grow like that, when they wanted to add a new feature, they might have had to erase a lot of code so that they could rewrite some of it. So a lot of the scalability.
Intricate.
A lot of the scalability aspects, what end users see, they can't really, it's not necessarily like a good enough indicator of what actually is done behind the scenes.
It isn't.
So.
Oh, okay. What about, so those courses, did you know I know you didn't do software engineering, but do you know like the names of those courses? Like,
there's the software engineering course, they're like object-oriented design courses. Okay. There are data structures and algorithms courses. Those ones teach you the best way to optimize your software so that it's not slow. So it teaches you the best way to use algorithms to make your software as fast as possible.
Optimization, software, stuff like that. Yeah. For electrical engineering, can you just name drop a few important courses?
No.
Like just the names?
Like analog circuits, digital circuits.
Digital analog circuits.
Pretty much all of those kind of stuff would just give you like some sort of fundamental as to what you like and what you don't like and where to go with your.
Okay. So last question, what advice would you give someone who's now interested in pursuing this degree? So with this, obviously we're going to split it into two, so electrical engineering first.
What advice would I give?
Someone who's now interested in pursuing this degree. I feel like you've given a lot of advice. I could recap to say, make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, and you also, if you have the passion for it, see how you're gonna build towards like a specialized course later on.
That's pretty much what I was gonna say. So you have to know, like as the time goes on, you have to know that that's what you want to do, because you don't want to get into like second or third year and have taken a lot of courses towards one stream and realize that you don't want to do that and then want to switch into another stream. So a lot of the courses may transfer, but still you have some wasted courses. So it's better to know early that it's what you want to do. And I'm not discouraging people against electrical engineering. I guess I'm just biased because I made the switch.
I think it's just telling people to have a lot more thought into electrical. Like there's a lot of maybe other engineering disciplines that you can maybe have a little wiggle room for thinking, but it doesn't seem like that for electrical.
And maybe I might be wrong. Maybe there are some people that have more specialized knowledge on this, but from what I gathered in
your perspective.
Yeah. However, and for people that want to do software engineering, it's also very vague, but it's if you like it, it's fun. It's fun to do it. There are some frustrations, but if it's something you feel you're very interested in, then you can push through it. And if it's something you're interested in, but you start and you feel like you don't like it, I know a lot of software engineers that didn't like it at first that pushed through and now they really like it. So you should have a good enough support system of people that know what they're doing and try to learn from them. Any problems you have, try to take it to them. And sometimes professors aren't the best resources. Some of them are very good, but a lot of the professors that teach even first year courses are people with PhDs. So what they're teaching you in first year to them is like learning the ABCs. So even when they think they're dumbing it down, they're still talking very complex. So it's better to learn from a student that's maybe you're a year or a year ahead, because it's still very fresh in their memory and they still know
tutors.
Exactly. So those
YouTube? YouTube? Because I know there's some. I use YouTube a lot for first year.
Yeah. When you're coding, there are lots and lots of YouTube examples. So if you want to, students or YouTubers, they know how to like explain it in layman's terms so that you really understand what's going on. If you have a friend that already understands what's going on, ask them to explain to you, because obviously a student will explain in students' terms versus a prof explaining. So
getting right into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's really good advice. Thank you very much for coming on my channel to do this. I feel like this is going to be very useful. This was very good information, and I hope it helps. I know it's going to help a lot of people. So let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments down below. Leave your comments down if you have questions for Korede. I'm going to list his information as well. Let me know what discipline you want me to bring on this channel next. Share, like, subscribe. Bye.